entertaining, talking sports.
What is going on, football fans? Back at it with another New York Giants video. And with 2 weeks to go, most New York Giants fans right now are on the upcoming draft. The New York Giants are, of course, 3-11 with 2 games remaining against the Washington Redskins and the Philadelphia Eagles. And in this video, I'm going to break down not just the Giants' remaining schedule, but all the teams that are in contention for that number 2 overall pick. I think at this point it is safe to say the Bengals, with a 2-game lead with 2 games to play, are more than likely, probably 99%, going to have the number 1 selection. After all, they've won 1 game in their first 14. For it to even be remotely possible for them to be passed, they'd have to win their last 2 games. And I just don't see it happening. So I think the race right now is for the number 2 pick. The good news is, for teams like the Giants and the Redskins and the Lions that don't need a quarterback, Chase Young will probably still be there at number 2, being that most people expect the Bengals to take their quarterback there in Burrow, being that they need one, and Andy Dalton will be on his way out. So this video is about the remaining schedule for the New York Giants and everybody else that is up there and who will take the position. And I'm going to jump into all the different scenarios of what I think you should be rooting for this week, specifically as a New York Giants fan. The first thing I'm going to talk about before I even get to the teams is the Eagles versus the Cowboys game. Now, you would say, what does this have to do with the 2nd overall pick? Well, it actually may have a ton to do with it when you think about it. The Eagles and Cowboys play the Giants and the Redskins in Week 17. Well, if you were rooting for the Giants to lose and get as good of a pick as possible, and the same for the Redskins, you actually want the Eagles to win that game, and I'm going to tell you why. If the Cowboys were to win, even though both teams are 7-7 going in, the Cowboys would have a season sweep against the Eagles, eliminating the Eagles from playoff contention, meaning they'd have nothing to play for against the New York Giants, of course, giving the Giants a much better possibility of winning. And the same could be said for the Cowboys. If the Cowboys were to win, they cannot move up in the seeding. They are locked in as the number 4 seed. So they would have nothing to play for either, giving the Redskins a higher probability of winning their last contest. So that is something you want to think about as Giants and Redskins fans going into Week 16. If you're rooting for the best pick possible, you want the Eagles to beat the Dallas Cowboys. Then both would have a ton to play for in that last week of the season. But let's jump into the standings as they currently sit. As I said, the Bengals, I'm not even going to go over their schedule. I think they're locked in at the number 1 pick. I just don't see any way possible they could win their last 2 games. The Giants, Miami, and Washington all sit at 3-11. As I've said in my prior videos, the SOS, the 4th column over, strength of schedule is the tiebreaker. The weaker strength of schedule, the higher you rank in terms of draft position if you do tie in record. The Giants right now have a 473. Miami and Washington both sit at 493. The reason I listed all 8 teams, the Jets and Jacksonville, theoretically still have an outside chance at moving up. However, when you look at the Jets and Jacksonville's remaining schedule, they both play 2 combined better teams than what the Giants play. So neither one of the Jets or Jacksonville could jump the Giants. The furthest the Giants could slip is 6. The Jets and Jacksonville certainly could move up, obviously, if Arizona were to win a game, if Washington maybe were to win both, if Miami were to win both, but they cannot pass the Giants. The lowest the Giants could slip is 6th. But the team you really want to look out for, in my opinion, is Detroit. Right now they sit at 5th at 3-10-1, but they play a very hard schedule for them, especially being that Matthew Stafford is out. And if the Giants were to win either one of their last 2 games, I think Detroit would certainly jump them. Now, if the Giants were to split, I think it would be better for them to lose to the Redskins and beat the Eagles in terms of draft position. Because if you lose to the Redskins, you knock the Redskins out in terms of passing you because of the strength of schedule. Even if the Redskins were to lose the last week and you were to beat the Eagles, you would still be ahead of the Washington Redskins. So if the Giants get a split, it would be better for their draft position if they were to beat the Eagles and lose to the Redskins. But let's jump into the schedule. The Detroit Lions right now, a team that a lot of people aren't even thinking about, being that they're picking 5th, but they're really only a half game out, play at Denver and Green Bay. Well, looking at that schedule, Denver started to play a little bit better. In Denver, a hard place to play. No Matthew Stafford. Lions have dropped 7 in a row. I don't see them winning that game, and I don't see them winning the Green Bay game. Green Bay is going to have something to play for no matter what. If they lose to Minnesota, they will have to win that game to win the division. If they beat Minnesota, they will need to win that game to try to get a bye in the first round. So Detroit, I see losing out, and I actually see Detroit as potentially the biggest threat and maybe even the most likely team to get the number 2 pick. And if they got the number 2 pick, they would certainly draft Chase Young, in my opinion. So that is a team, if the Giants do not lose out, I think will pass the Giants for the number 2 pick. Next team we're going to talk about is the Dolphins. The Dolphins certainly are a threat as well. They sit tied with the Giants at 3-11 and currently in the 4th position. They play the Bengals and at New England. Bengals, I think it's a game they should win. The Dolphins have been playing tough. They're a better team than Cincinnati. Cincinnati certainly could win. I wouldn't be shocked, but it's in Miami. I got to go Miami. And obviously, as a Giants fan, a Redskins fan, or anybody else, you're rooting for Miami to win that football game. If Miami were to win that football game, as long as the Giants split, Miami's not passing the Giants. So that is a game you want and need Miami to win, and I think they will. If Miami were to win that game, as long as we split, which I think we will, the worst I could see is falling is 4th probably. So we'll see how that plays out. The Redskins schedule, like I said, the Giants, huge games in terms of the draft position. The winner would be the favorite probably to win the number 2, not win, but receive the number 2 selection in this year's upcoming draft. They then play at Dallas. Of course, looking at it on paper, Dallas should win that game. But if Dallas were to beat the Eagles and have nothing to play for, that is certainly a game the Redskins could win. If you are a Lions fan, you are rooting for Dallas to beat the Eagles, because then both the Cowboys and Eagles would have nothing to play for against the 2 teams you're trying to jump. As a Lions fan, the only way you have a path to the number 2 pick is the winner of the loser of the Giants and Redskins game would win their last week. And the only way I see that possible is that exact scenario. The Cardinals is a team a lot of people are sleeping on. Now, they're a game and a half back. I don't think they could jump all the way up to 2, but they could certainly improve their draft position if some of these teams win a couple of games. Now, when you look at the tiebreaker, the only team they could tie with is the Detroit Lions. But Arizona right now 4-9-1 with a strength of schedule of 540. So they are not going to be able to pass Detroit in the tiebreaker either, being that they're 507. So Arizona will not pass Detroit. The only way they could pass any of the teams from 2 to 4 is if they won both games. And I don't see that happening. I suppose it's possible with the Giants or the Redskins. The winner of that game may have an outside chance to win their last game if, like I said, the Cowboys were to win against the Eagles, giving neither team a game to play for. So the furthest I could see the Cardinals going is 5th. They could certainly drop if they win some of these games, but I don't think they will. If you're a Jet and Jaguar fan, I don't think you're getting much higher than where you currently sit. And I see the Cardinals being either in the 6th or 5th spot. There's 4 teams that have a realistic chance at that number 2 selection, I should say. And that is the New York Giants, the Miami Dolphins, the Detroit Lions, and, of course, the Washington Redskins. The loser of the Redskins-Giants game becomes the immediate favorite, in my opinion, unless, of course, Miami were to lose to Cincinnati, which I suppose could happen. And if that were to happen, that would open up all the possibilities. The Giants then would have a chance at the number 1 pick. But if you're a Giants fan, if you're a Redskin fan, you're not thinking number 1 pick at this point in time, because I don't think we could catch Cincinnati. I don't see Cincinnati winning both. So as a Giants fan or any other team that's trying to get that number 2 pick and get Chase Young, you definitely want Miami to beat the Bengals, and we'll see how it all plays out. But yeah, that Eagles and Cowboys game could play a huge factor in who gets the number 2 pick. We're going to have to wait and see how it all plays out. Of course, if Burrow does not go 1 to the Bengals and they decide to go Chase Young, well then, still, with that number 2 pick, you have a ton of power. You have the ability to trade down because there will certainly be teams wanting to come up to get Burrow. So we're going to have to wait. It's going to be a very interesting last 2 weeks of the season. I just wanted to play it all out. If I had to guess my prediction of how it'll play out, I'm not going to, the Giants-Redskins, it's a coin flip game for me. It could go either way. The loser of that game will more than likely get the number 2 pick. However, the Detroit Lions have a strong possibility of getting it. And they may, I'll tell you this, if the Eagles lose to the Cowboys, the Detroit Lions might be my favorite to get the number 2 pick. And I think the Eagles are going to lose to the Cowboys, or they definitely could, being I think that it is in Dallas. I could be mistaken on that. But if it's in Dallas, I don't know. It's going to be interesting. But Eagles-Cowboys is going to play a big part in this race. Detroit Lions are a team you want to look out for. They're a team that could certainly get it. And if Miami were to lose to the Bengals, of course, they're very much at play. It is going to be a crazy last 2 weeks. I cannot wait to see how it plays out. But, yeah, root for your team or don't. But either way, you're rooting for your team. If you're rooting for them to lose, you're just rooting for them to get a better draft pick. That's the way I look at it. But let's enjoy the last 2 weeks of the season, and let's see how it plays out. And let's see who wins in the race for Chase. As always, if you liked what you watched, please subscribe, drop a comment, maybe give me a little thumbs up. Cheers.